Good to see you all. Lovely, lovely day with a promise of spring. And yeah, I look forward to that, eh? All the different seasons coming and going. And here in this season, for us, we're turning into this repository of wisdom and looking into the book of Proverbs. Not a place that I've heard a lot of sermons from, I must admit. And having to work at it, I kind of begin to see the reason why. It's a job, but there's just so much treasure here, and we want to try and dig at it a little for us all. Proverbs is full of themes, and that's why I'm going to focus on those themes in the coming weeks. And one of the most key themes in the book of Proverbs is speech and words, and what we must do with our speech and our words. So I want to read to you some verses that just put that into context from Proverbs 15. And we're going to read verses 1 to 8, and then we're going to read verses 23 to 29. And you'll have to spot the theme working their way through these verses. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. A fool spurns a parent's discipline, but whoever heeds correction shows prudence. The house of the righteous contains great treasure, but the income of the wicked brings ruin. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not upright. The Lord detests the sacrifice of the wicked, but the prayer of the upright pleases him. Now, across to verse 23. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word? The path of life leads upward for the prudent to keep them from going down to the realm of the dead. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he sets a widow's boundary stones in place. The Lord detests the thoughts of the wicked, but gracious words are pure in his sight. The greedy bring ruin to their households, but the one who hates bribes will live. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. Wow. And I think that's typical Proverbs. And like I was saying last week, it's deliberate, this moving things around and intervening with other seeming topics. It's purposeful because life is like that. We don't have the that opportunity to just focus on one thing at any time because life is coming at us left, right, and center. But you can see in a passage like that how it just keeps on, even though it turns away from the topic. It keeps on coming back to it. It keeps on coming back to what comes out of the mouth. Now, when you're talking about Proverbs, some folk proverbs, they sound a bit like they might come from the book of Proverbs, but they're not from there. But some folk proverbs are, those kind of, what do they call them? Old wives' tales, or, things that your granny would have told you. Some of them are very truthful and right and good, and some of them are just plain wrong. I mean, wronger than wrong. Can you get that? I mean, maybe there. But I think I was 8 years old when I realized that one of the folk proverbs that even by that stage in my life I had ingested was completely and utterly wrong. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I mean, who in their right mind came up with that one? Because actually, most of us spend a lifetime trying to work out the words that were spoken into our lives at some point or other. Words can be, how long does it take a broken bone to fix? 6 weeks, 12 maybe, and you're back to rights. Katrina maybe can put us straight here. So bones can fix and wounds can heal. But words go very, very deep. And they cause injuries that we can carry through our entire lives. What a wrong thing to say that is. Or people maybe say, it's only words. Well, it might be only words. People might excuse the way they speak sometimes. But like Douglas the puppet was informing us this morning, friends, it's 7-1, that ratio. One negative needs to be, you need 7 positives to outweigh that one negative into our lives. We need with our children, we need with our friends, we need with our partners, we need to be speaking words of encouragement and words of blessing far, far more than those words of checking and of discouragement and of, putting in the boundaries, if you like. They're important, but we must find words that encourage and bless. Words, friends, matter. Words matter so very much. It's here in Proverbs chapter 18. It's a wonderful, wonderful proverb, verse 21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. The tongue has the power of life and death. Such is the power, such is the extent to which words matter. And they matter so very much. And Jesus understood this. And as Jesus came, he spoke these words that out of the overflow, out of the fullness of our hearts, the mouth speaks. What we have to say comes out of what is stored up inside us. And if what's coming out of us is anger and scorn and untruth, then it's probably because inside there's a little bit of a storm raging in our lives. That actually we have to take very, very good note that actually our words, what we say, reveals the inner life. Jesus' full words were in Luke chapter 6, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. An evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So here's a question. I have to ask myself this as well. What's your heart full of? What are you investing into your heart that will enable your speech to change or your speech to be good? How do we do that? And that's maybe where we're at here in the book of Proverbs. And just as there are 2 paths to follow, 2 ways to take in life, there are 2 Proverbs really resolves that. It keeps things really, really simple. 2 ways to go, 2 types of words. And let's just go over them quickly, because there are, first of all, those words that come from the mouth of the righteous. And as you might expect, these are good words. These are words of knowledge. These are words of wisdom that show the fruit of wisdom. That's chapter 10 and verse 31. From the mouth of the righteous comes the fruit of wisdom, but a perverse tongue will be silenced. The lips of the righteous know what finds favor, it speaks about. So these words that come from the mouth of the righteous are they're both knowledgeable and they're wise, and as a consequence, they are, it says in chapter 15 and verse 9, they are a tree of life. They are a tree of life. And that's I've not got the right reference there, but I'll find it in a moment. That the tree of life is a great image in the book of Proverbs to help us understand what impact our words can actually have and how they can bless others. Because what they can do is they can bring life to them. They can enable that, and they can bring peace. They can bring contentment. They can settle difficult situations and enable people in hard situations. It's actually chapter 15 and verse 4. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. And you know that. You know that from experience, don't you? You know that when somebody comes alongside you with words that encourage you, that bless you, that build you up, you feel life surging back into your body. And you know that equally, when you have words that crush you, you know how that feels. Makes you feel very small. Makes you feel very wounded. You might take a good while to get over that and need to move on. There's also, from the mouth of the righteous, we're talking about gracious words, words that are filled with grace. And these words are pure in God's sight. Gracious words, chapter 15, verse 26, are pure in the sight of God. And they are words that are truthful, so they are trustworthy words. They're words in which God delights in. Verse 22 of chapter 12, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. Do you think people would say that about you? That you are trustworthy? Because actually, very often, whether we are trustworthy or not is weighed in the balance by what we say, how we say it, what we do with the information that we are holding on other people, how we speak about other people. It depends on whether people regard us as being trustworthy or not. But God delights in trustworthy words. And such words, chapter 12 and verse 19 says, truthful lips endure forever, whereas a lying tongue will last only a moment. You know that's true, don't you? A lie might buy some time, but inevitably it gets found out. And so actually, the truth is what lasts. The truth is what endures. The truth is what will out in the end. And so these words that are coming from the mouth of the righteous, they are described in some wonderful pictures. They're described as choice silver, as a fountain of life, as a rushing stream and deep waters, as a honeycomb that is sweet to the soul and healing to the bones, in chapter 16 and verse 24 it is. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul, healing to the bones. These are the words of the righteous. These are good words. This is what we're aiming for, right? And then there's a second type of words, which are words to avoid. Just like there was a way. There's a way that inevitably we get onto, but actually we don't ever want to actually journey on it if we only knew where it was going. And there's also this kind of speech. There's a kind of speech that we want to reflect, and there's a kind of speech that we definitely don't want to reflect. And that is described as the words of the wicked frequently in the book of Proverbs. The words of the wicked are rash. They 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 speak ruin into situations. They convey strife. They stir up violence. They cause trouble. We have to look at maybe at an example of that would be the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Chapter 10 and verse 11. Or chapter 17 and verse 20, I think it is. And that says, the one whose tongue is perverse themselves falls into trouble. Bad words lead to bad effects because the words that come out of the mouth of the wicked inevitably gush evil. The mouth of the wicked gushes evil, chapter 15, verse 28, whereas the heart of the righteous weighs its answers. They are perverse words. They're words that crush the spirit, as we've already gone into. And there's two types in particular that come in for focus and attention in the book of Proverbs. Two types of bad words that really Proverbs sets its guns on. And the first group of bad words that it really sets its sights on are lies, deceitful words. Lies, those things that they might sound all right at the time, but they're only going to last that moment that people believe them, and then when they're found out, you're undone. These are the words that God not only detests, but he frustrates. Chapter 22 and verse 12. The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of unfaithfulness. God frustrates unfaithful words. And so lies themselves are undone because the truth will come out. And then the second group of words that Proverbs sets its sight on, and here, well, maybe we're all prone as well sometimes to that in a moment of difficulty or embarrassment, we are prone to maybe that lie that we later regret. But here's one that we've all got to watch out for, because the second group of words that Proverbs sets its sights on are gossip. And it's gossip is such a difficult thing, because I'm sure if we were asked the question, are you a gossip? All of us would say, no, I am not a gossip. But the problem is, where does sharing something about someone else cross over that line? And what are we sharing, and how are we sharing it? Those are two things that actually really we need to take note of. We need to be really careful of. Gossip, the book of Proverbs says, is a thing that breaks down communities. It breaks down friendships. Chapter 25 and verse 22 has got a really amazing image that I found really helpful thinking about it, because let me just get that. It's actually verse 23 of chapter 25. Like the north wind that brings unexpected rain is a sly tongue which provokes a horrified look. And so often, gossip, even maybe unknown to us, can be a bit sly. It's again revealing of what we actually think about the person we're maybe talking about. It's revealing about our actual kind of judgments that we've made upon them. At its very basic, we're doing what Proverbs says in chapter 20 and verse 19, because it says there, a gossip betrays a confidence. So avoid anyone who talks too much. Oh dear, I'm going to have to be careful. You will be avoiding me. A gossip betrays a confidence. trustworthy people are people who guard their words. Again, gossip is something that undoes relationships. We're told in chapter 11 and verse 9, with their mouths, the godless destroy their neighbors. And in chapter 26, there's another good one to remember. Back in there, if we're ever feeling tempted to gossip, in chapter 26 and verse 20, without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. Really, really important. But then just two Proverbs later, it says the words of the gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost path. It's tempting. It's tempting to, when we haven't got things to say, knowledgeable things, wise things to say, it's tempting to fill that space with what we think about other people, because we always think something about other people, don't we? Be really careful what you say. Be very careful what we say. How then can we speak good words? Well, James chapter 1 and verse 26 says that those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. James is a very harsh judge on these matters. And really we need to be very careful what we say. And Proverbs has got, I just love this proverb, which is really, really a blessing, I think, to all of us. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. So there's Proverbs' top tip. That's from Proverbs 17 and verse 28. There's the top tip to get by in regard to words. Just say less. Don't speak so often. Don't say so much. Don't be fast to speak. And when you are speaking, shut up quickly. Because actually, your way to seem wise and wiser and more knowledgeable is just to say less. That's one route through to the end. The prudent tells us in Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 9, the prudent hold, verse 19 actually, the prudent hold their tongues. Those who are thinking these thoughts about what they say, they weigh their answers. They use wise words with restraint. The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint. Whoever has understanding is even tempered. Again from chapter 17. So what this is telling us is that we need to set a guard on our mouths. Like, yes, the tongue is difficult to tame. And really, really difficult. We're going to read some words from James chapter 3 in a moment that warns us of that. But the way to keep it in check is just to keep your mouth shut. If you haven't got something good to say, don't say it. Be very careful what you say. Speak less. And then a second way that we can bring life to our words is we can start to think about how our words, the things that we do say, can actually bless other people. So this week, have a think about this. From Proverbs chapter 15 and at verse 4 that we've already quoted, the soothing tongue is a tree of life. How can your words this next week be a tree of life? How can they be soothing to people? What will they look like in order to do that? And here's one that I absolutely love, and I'm sure you have heard before. A gentle answer turns away wrath. We read it, didn't we, at the beginning of the service, at the beginning of this sermon. Gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up answer. I've seen that proverb played out in my life many, many times. It's one that I've absorbed and has become part of me, and quite often manages to help in a situation of difficulty. Laura was reminding me of one time when this really was illustrated for us. We were on a family camping trip down at Loch Tay, and we were at a campsite in Killen. And it was, one of those campsites that stretched out across the hillside, so it didn't have a lot of flat ground. And we were looking for a flat place to put up our tent. And away in the corner of the field was a sort of space that was under a tree, and there was just one tent down there. And we thought, well, that's a good space for us to put up our tent. And it was a big family tent. Took about an hour to set up and take all the stuff out of the car and get everything pegged out and sorted out. And we just finished and we're putting on the kettle for a cup of tea. And a woman came over and started raging at us. I mean, she was effing and blinding, and how dare we come and put up a tent next to her tent, and didn't she deserve some space? And I mean, the language was unbelievable. It was a really, really awkward moment. And so I went out to her and I said, listen, because she'd spoken about why this was a problem. She'd been there before, and they were stuck in a tenement in Glasgow, and this was a place to get space, and they didn't need neighbors in this spot. And you can imagine the words that came in between. And I said and I just went out to her. Laura had said to me, just calm down. And I sort of managed to hold on to that piece of wisdom. So I went out and I said, look, we will move. We will move. And so we spent the next hour and a half moving our stuff to another corner of this field. And we went up. And you know what? 2 hours later, this lady came to our tent with ice creams for the kids. And to explain that she felt like she had a hard life and she was so sorry about the way that she'd spoken. But she was so pleased that we'd moved. So I mean, I could think of many illustrations of that one, but really, a gentle answer does turn away wrath. Think about how your words at work can be gracious. Think about how, and of course, the issue isn't in the normal run of life. The issue is when you are stressed. The issue is when you are under assault in some form or other. And it's those. And you know what? The only way that your words can be actually soothing and gracious is if you practice it in the times when it's not stressful. If you make a way of life being words that are gracious and gentle. And then finally, in regard to blessing words, I love this from Proverbs 31. And it speaks here in Proverbs 31 of the way in which we need to speak up, verse 8, for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. So this week, who are you going to speak up for? This week, look for those opportunities to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. But James has more to say that might help us along our way. And I just will end with this. James chapter 3. In James chapter 3, James says, again, James is the book in the New Testament that most reflects the book of Proverbs. And James in chapter 3 talks about putting bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us. Take ships, they're so large, driven by strong winds. They're steered, though, by a very small rudder. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, sea creatures are being tamed, have been tamed by mankind, but no human can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With our tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praising and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? Friends, We need to remember Jesus' words back there in Luke and chapter 6 and verse 45. The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. The interior life matters. What you put in will come out. So attend to what you're putting in, what you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're reading, who you're engaging with, and how are you engaging with those people. What you put in will come out. So if you want better things to come out, then you need to attend to the better things going in, because your mouth reflects what your heart has got in it. Let's just commit ourselves to understanding that the best way that we can do this is by committing ourselves, as Proverbs says, to God's words. Verse 5 of chapter 30 in Proverbs says, every word of God is flawless. How I wish that could be true of me. Sadly, it isn't yet. Every word of God is flawless. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. So then, this week, as we seek to change the way we speak, as we seek to reflect God's wisdom in our speech, let's attend to God's word. Make that word the words that sit in our heart, because out of the overflow of our heart, our mouth will speak. Sandra.